What's going on, people? Welcome to Villa and Noir. This is my match debrief after the Villa win against Arsenal yesterday. What a win that was. Before I get into anything today, before I talk about our stats, or before I talk about the tactics that we utilised, make sure you like, comment and subscribe to this channel. We're on the way to 500 subscribers and I'm really appreciative of all the support that everybody's sending. So today we're going to look at some of the stats that we saw from the game. We saw some of the patterns of play, see where we did well, see where we kind of were lucky in some respects, but ultimately what a day it was for Aston Villa. So let's get into today's debrief.
Warning. May start talking about Aston Villa.
All right, so as always, first things first, we're going to look at Aston Villa's average positions, which always give us, well, to be honest, they always tell a story about the game and always tell a story about the plan that Unai generally had for the team. Let me just get my stuff patterned accordingly. So let me share my screen. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. So Aston Villa on the left-hand side, Arsenal on the right-hand side. As you can see, Monque. As you can see, you can see there's lots of congestion in the middle of the park in terms of everyone's average positions from the starting 11. And usually that's a sign that could be a sign that we were bogged down in the midfield and didn't have chance to really do anything more than that. However, this was cognizant of the plan that Unai Emery had for the game in terms of packing out the midfield against Arsenal. As you know, Arsenal have a very strong midfield three of Zubimendi, Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, with that 10, the person that plays the 10, just kind of floating in and around, kind of going here, there and everywhere. And I think it was important for Villa to assert some dominance in the middle of the park from the very beginning, which is why I think that Unai went with the midfield of Kamara, Tielemans and Onana. So yeah, pack the midfield, make sure that they're not allowed to assert some dominance within the game. And as you can see from people's average position, so Kamara's average position around just like kind of just patrolling. Onana kind of sat a little bit deeper, which is fine. But with the likes of Tielemans kind of dropping in, obviously Morgan Rogers, as much as he was meant to be on the left for most of the game, kind of played like an inside forward a little bit, which worked well. You know, I think Tielemans and Rogers had an awesome game between the two of them. I just think that it was a masterstroke from Unai Emery. We could see against the top teams, you know, against Liverpool and the Man Cities and the Arsenals and, you know, the teams that like to assert dominance on the game, it's important to disrupt that flow. And I could see similarities in how we were defending, similarities how we were set up to our game against City, again at home, the one that we won. Well, we were under a lot of pressure, but this is a reason why I could imagine that he decided to start Tielemans, Onana and Kamara. You've got two holding midfielders that are tenacious, that can tackle, that know how to hold on to the ball, can receive the ball in precarious positions and hold on to it. Kamara a little bit better at that than Onana, and then allow Tielemans, who can also play that deep role, to also play a little bit further forward. And with Tielemans' ability to unlock passes between lines, having that further forward actually allowed the likes of Ollie Watkins to get more space. You know, his runs in behind are being acknowledged a little bit more now with someone of a ball player like Tielemans, an accurate passer like Tielemans in the middle of the park. And I don't see a reason why this can't be a more consistent starting 11 moving forward. I remember when Tielemans first came and that first season where we had Dougie and we had Kamara and Tielemans was playing in that 10 role. And I feel like, yes, I think last season he had to drop a little bit deeper because of the absence, because Dougie left, because they've got similar profiles in terms of how they play. But I think with the emergence now of Onana and the stability of Kamara, there's no reason why Tielemans can't play further forward. And, Morgan Rogers playing out on the left, which he played a lot of last year and really kind of excelled. And he's not really a left winger anyway because he comes in and drifts in. But I don't know about anybody else. There were some moments with Morgan Rogers with absolute brilliance on the left-hand side. And he's obviously talismanic in how he plays and he can play anywhere. So I think him growing into the game, growing into the squad, how he has done, he doesn't necessarily have to play in the middle of the park to be useful. So I don't see why this can't be a consistent thing with us moving forward. So that's I think what the average positions give a good look at what we were doing. I think that if I show you again, I think Matty Cash's average position of being quite high up, nearly in line with John McGinn, shows his tenacity in terms of getting up and down the field. Look at his heat map. He wasn't bogged down. And I think that's because, in the first half, I don't think Arsenal's main threat was here. Throughout the game, to be fair, Arsenal's main threat was down the right-hand side, obviously with Ben White, Bukayo Saka, and that triangle that they formed with Martin Odegaard. And I have to give a shout out to Ian Maatsen. I think he had a blinder yesterday. I know I caught a lot of heat from fans when I placed him where I placed him in my last rankings against Brighton. And it's not about his inability to go forward, because we know that he can go forward and play well. I just felt that his defensive display against Brighton just wasn't amazing. And against better teams, I always worry. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed that in the past, Unai's kind of gone for Digne, especially against the higher quality sides with great wingers. But what we're seeing, and I think what we saw yesterday, is that Ian Maatsen with consistency, Ian Maatsen with a show of faith, Ian Maatsen with consistency in terms of who he's playing alongside, in terms of Pau Torres there with him. We're starting to see him become a little bit more comfortable defensively. And, I think they handled Bukayo Saka and that Ben White tandem incredibly yesterday. And long may it continue. I think he has a great connection in his link-up play. He played really well with Morgan on the left-hand side. His interplay with Pau Torres as well as they come forward. Even Jadon Sancho, when he came on, we didn't lose anything. So just things are looking good in the right way. If we look at the stats quickly as well from the game, it just speaks of a very even game. With one difference that people have been hassling us about. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Okay, I didn't zoom. Okay, here we go. So it was a fairly even game possession-wise, 47%, 53% to Arsenal. XG, expected goals, 2.16, big chances 5, total shots equal between the two of us. It looks like a very even game, and it was an even game. And I think in times past, there would have been games where we would have been overloaded. Like the game against City, City kind of just were putting the hammer down on us, and we had a defensively astute and resilient display. But yesterday against Arsenal, we were able to go toe-to-toe. It was like watching a boxing match where two fighters who both have a puncher's chance, just going at it. And it was just beautiful to watch. And it was like watching a last minute knockout punch from us. So we matched Arsenal. And, that speaks volumes about how Emery prepares our team, speaks volumes about how good our players are. And, I've been watching some Arsenal fan TV, and, yes, they were missing Saliba, and yes, they were missing Gabriel. And their squad's been a bit depleted. But we were without players as well in terms of our bench. Our bench wasn't as strong as it could have been. And if you looked at Arsenal's bench yesterday, apart from defensively, they had a myriad of choices to go to be able to take the game by the scruff of the neck and make something happen. So, a lot of excuses from those Arsenal fans, and the more honest fans were able to admit that, Aston Villa were exactly a third place team. They were played like a top 4 team, which we are. Just want to show something in terms of our stats. And again, for the longest time, Aston Villa have been ridiculed. Again, our start of the season wasn't great. So we were the last team in all of English football to score a goal. So our ability to create chances, our ability to create big chances, seemingly was lost in the mire. And yes, Ollie Watkins has been off form, but yesterday we went toe to toe with Arsenal, 15 shots to 15 shots. We had 6 shots on target, they had 9. We had 7 block shots, they had 1 block shot. Now this is the key here: shots inside the box. There was a period of time. Shots inside the box were 13. Now there was a period of time where Aston Villa, we couldn't find any opportunities in the box. And Unai he recognised, I wouldn't say recognised, I think we're at a point now where the cohesion of the squad is one that everybody knows what they're doing and everybody's playing to their strengths. People aren't doing what they're not asked to do. No one's trying to do more than what they're asked to do. No one's trying to do more than what they're capable of doing. And that might catch us out. You never know. It might catch us out. The fact that we don't have a out-and-out right winger might catch us out. But at the minute, it's working. I do think Unai is a chess player, so he's thinking way ahead. I know that in January, we're going to address that lack of width and speed on the right-hand side because our left-hand side seems to be covered. But there was a time where we couldn't get any chances. But now we're starting to see chances. We're starting to create chances, viable chances. And this is probably why, I do think Ollie Watkins is going to come out of the funk. I really do, because we're able to penetrate in those final thirds like we weren't able to at the start of the season. So things are looking good. I think Unai showed himself again as a top-class manager. I know Arsenal rue letting him go. They have to, because you've seen now what Unai Emery can do with a squad that he likes, what Unai Emery can do with time, right? Because we're always improving and we're always going above and beyond. And I can only imagine, I really do hope we get Champions League football this year, or for next year, just to see what happens in terms of the types of players that we can start bringing in, because we are legitimately a top 4 team. And I do think that this good form is going to continue. Do I think that going into the new year, we're going to have a crazy win streak? I'm not sure. The Premier League this year is the most equal Premier League I've ever seen. And I think it's beautiful for the game. I think the partiality in this league has been just a great thing to experience. No team, no matter how big they are, has been able to go to any other team or receive any other team with absolute assurance that they're going to win. Even before yesterday's game, Arsenal have played some tight games, where they've got out of trouble, but yesterday they weren't able to. But this is the most equal I think the league has been in a long time. If you look at even now, we're nearly halfway through the season, and the amount of points that separate maybe like second or third from 10th, it's not a 10-point gap. It's maybe 6 or 7, which means 2 losses or 2 wins, you can see your position change. I think 2 weeks ago, Aston Villa were maybe in 7th, 8th, and now, because of this win streak that we've been on, we're now solidly sitting in 3rd place. It's a great league to behold at the moment. So we just have to continue to win the games that we need to win. I do think we're going to go 6 for 6 in this in this period that I talked about in December. I really do, or at least 5 out of 6. And yeah, but Unai's showing himself as a top class manager, and I've watched back some of my previous videos from the start of the season, and I'm gonna have to eat crow constantly. Unai was getting it. I was never calling him to be kicked out of the club, but I knew that something was wrong. But I think the sign of a good manager is the ability to recognize when things aren't okay, and you shift and you move and you turn things around. And he's shown himself. And as always, it's in Unai we trust. The vibes are great at Aston Villa at the moment, and we got to continue doing what we're doing. I'm excited to see what we do as we end out the year. I do think we need to get active in the transfer market. I know that PSR rules and all that kind of stuff might limit us, but we have to be active, especially to address that right hand side. As great as John McGinn has been, I think there's opportunities constantly on the right hand side that we miss unless Matty Cash is overlapping and we can get a first time ball in from a right footer. We saw that yesterday with the final goal with Bendia. I think Morgan's first time ball into the box with a sublime cross just opened it all up for us, and it could have been a goal from Tielemans after the layoff from Jadon Sancho. But I think that's what we're missing a little bit when it comes to our right hand side, because if we can get the same on our right hand side that we get on our left hand side, I think we might actually end up being unplayable, because when we play through the middle, we're top tier. When we play down the left, you can see the things working, and from the right it just needs to be a little bit more cohesive. I guess this is why Evan Gessand is there, but hopefully we can see that come to fruition. But if not, maybe we can get a Bailey-esque type player who's playing at top form to be able to help us to push on. But yeah, man, I'm excited for what's going on. This has been amazing. I think yesterday showed how Aston Villa can play at the top level and we can compete at the top level. And, next week against West Ham, I know we got a game on Thursday. Let's try and see the year out with 100% for this period. I don't know if anyone else believes it's possible. If you do, let me know in the comments. Yes, guys, it's been Villa and Noir. Thank you for watching. As always, let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Push this further. Push this out to the Villa massive and the football massive around the world. Listen, you know what it is. As always, up the Villa. Peace.